Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So today I want to talk about my favorite drawing tools and well, the reason for this video is that I think it's always really interesting to see which tools other artists use, and so today I wanted to take a closer look at some of my favorite drawing tools. I don't really switch my drawing gear that often once I've found something that I like, so I have used the things that I will show you here for years, and I very rarely switch them. So for field sketching and in the studio, I mostly use simple mechanical pencils with either HB or 2B lead. So not everyone likes mechanical pencils, I know that, but I happen to like them. And what I find cool is that I have the convenience of always having a sharp, fine point without having to carry around a pencil sharpener. So this here is the HB lead, and then I also have a 2B lead. As you can see, it makes sort of these darker lines. And you can get also quite different lines out of them if you want, and if you turn them around for a little bit. So I also use regular pencils, but at the moment and overall I really prefer mechanical pencils. So these mechanical pencils usually come with an integrated eraser, or sometimes it's even refillable, but usually these refillable eraser bits are really expensive, so it's kind of a double bind. It's great when they come with this eraser thing, but to find a replacement can be really expensive. And about the lead type, I really don't like anything softer than 2B for my sketchbook work, because it tends to smear the graphite all over the page, the softer pencil types. So HB pencil sketches on their own can sometimes look a little bit anemic, and you can't really push dark values with them. So I often use this kind of 2B lead, which is a bit darker. You can see this in the comparison here. So even if I press very hard, I don't really get a very dark lines from the HB. So, and this is when I use other media like watercolor or colored pencil that I can put on top of this, and then I get darker values. And I also have different kinds of regular pencils, so there are different companies that make great pencils, like again Faber-Castell or Tombow. The pencils by Staedtler are also good, so there's a nice selection for different kinds of regular pencils if you want. And I use these on and off for some of my sketches. I like to have these sort of softer and thicker lines for some of my sketches. And this one also has an eraser cap, which can come in handy. Simply pop it on and then you have an eraser on the go. Then I have a selection of colored pencils, and colored pencils on their own produce really nice strokes too. So let's take a look at this. I like to have, when I'm sketching, I like to have a few neutral colors around, like these sort of, this is a dark violet, or then there are warm grays that you could use. This almost looks like a pencil, but not quite, and it's a bit softer in line. And this is a kind of a sepia, and here's a middle blue. And there are different brands, of course, of colored pencils. There are wax-based or oil-based colored pencils. They usually don't smudge so easily, so and they have a very soft drawing feel. So I really like them for quick sketches. About the brands here, there are different brands of colored pencils, of course. I'm currently trying to figure out which ones I like best, so I won't give you a recommendation. It's best to use artist grade colored pencils, of course, like with every material, and unfortunately some of these are really expensive, but with some brands of colored pencils, they are not really light fast, and this is why I'm currently testing out these more expensive ones to see if I like drawing with them. So I can do another video about colored pencils if you're interested in that. So I find they're a really interesting addition to any sketching kit, and I love combining them with watercolor or ink washes. So if you use a light color, this can also serve for initial rough sketches that you can paint over later, and then the lines will sort of disappear. Let's take a look at some inking tools. So for drawing with ink, I really love these Lamy fountain pens, and this is a Lamy Safari. It's the most basic model, and combined with waterproof drawing ink, I find this is a really great combination. So because when the ink is waterproof, you can actually go over it with paint or with other ink, and the lines will stay in place. So I use sketch ink by Rohrer and Klingner, which is waterproof, and it's available in lots of different colors. And I really like combining these kind of different colors with each other in the sketchbook or in illustrations. So you can, of course, combine ink lines with watercolor or let the drawing stand on its own. I quite like the look of these pure ink drawings with variable lines. So this is something that I really like about fountain pens, is that you can produce these sort of modulating lines, and depending on how hard you press, or if you turn around the nib, you can get these really modulated line qualities. And this is something that I find much more interesting than drawing with something like this. So there are fine liners or these technical pens, and they always have the same line width. You can, of course, for some applications, this is preferable to have the same line width overall, but I find these, I always find my drawings are lacking something when I use these kind of pens. So I carry some of these, I have some of these fine liners, but I almost never use them. So here's another one. It's even a bit, it's even finer. But so what I also like about fountain pens is that you can refill them infinite times. So there's no kind of throwaway plastic from empty pens. I have tried to refill these in the past with ink, but you'll have to apply brute force, and the results often involve sort of a big mess and inky fingers and stuff like that. So with these fountain pens, you can exchange you can put a converter into the ink compartment, and then you can refill it infinite times. And I will show you the ink that I use. So, well, I've actually put something over the logo to have a sample of the color, but this is the sketch ink that I use. It's, as I said, it's waterproof, and it has a really nice green color. They come in all kinds of different colors. I usually keep multiple fountain points around filled with different ink colors, and in this case the color of the pen even corresponds to the color that's in the pen, so I really like this. And so I have different fountain pens so that I can switch and combine colors in my sketchbook. This is an effect I really like, and I find the colors of this particular ink also play really well together. When I'm at my desk, I sometimes like to use dip nibs instead of the fountain pen. And the advantage of these dip nibs is that you can use any ink without having to think about clogging your pen, because with fountain pens you can only use certain types of inks. Often they are not waterproof inks, with the exception of some inks, like I showed here. But you have to pay a little bit of attention what you put in your fountain pen, because the inner workings of a fountain pen can be clogged and then you can't use it anymore. But with these dip nibs, you just have this part that will go into the ink, and you can clean it again after use. And so this is a really cool, flexible system. I have a ton of flexible pointed nibs from my calligraphy days, but for sketching I enjoy these slightly more rigid drawing nibs. So this is a selection of the nibs that I usually use these days. So I'm not sure, I think this is a Japanese drawing nib. Then we have a map drawing nib, which is quite stiff. And this is another, I think this is another Japanese nib, which is actually pretty flexible. So just let me show you what you can do with these. So I hope you can see this well. So you apply a little bit of ink, then the best thing is to run it off on the edge of the container. And then you can simply start drawing. And as you can see, you can modulate the lines even more than what you can achieve with fountain pen. And it makes this really cool scratchy noise, which is, I find it's actually quite soothing. So you can also do these sort of thin lines. If you turn it around, the lines can be even thinner. All kinds of interesting textures can be produced from these dip nibs. And the great thing about this is these are also one of the most sturdy and sustainable drawing tools. So the holders will last for ages, and the steel nibs need to be replaced from time to time, but if you take good care of it and clean it after each use, which I will do now, then they will really last you a long time. So usually I just put them in a little bit of water and then swipe them until they're dry, and then they're waiting for the next use. Let me show another one here. So this is the drawing nib. You can see it's really producing these nice thin lines. It's also a bit smaller, so I have to refill it more often. There's something in the ink, so let's just do this again. So you can get really, really interesting effects from these kind of nibs, and I really like them for drawing. Okay, let's clean this too, and then see what else we got. I'll also quickly show you my erasers. So this is really nothing fancy. I like to have this kind of standard vinyl eraser around, which will not produce a lot of these little, what you call them. And what I also like to have is a kneaded eraser, and this is a really soft eraser that you can bring into any form you want. And usually you can use it like this and just pick up the graphite, or you can also sort of sharpen it and bring it to a point, and then use it in very specific kind of places. And there's another tool that I really like. This is a fine point eraser. It's called, I'm actually not sure, it's a Mono Zero, so this is from Tombow too. And this is a really nice tool because you can erase really small areas. So you could also use this almost as a drawing tool in itself. So you can really produce fine highlights with this. So a really interesting tool to have around. Again, as with all of these specialized erasers and small eraser tools, the refill erasers for this are sort of expensive, but again, for some uses, this is really practical. Then I also have a gel pen in my field kit for adding quick highlights, and I find that gel pens are always a compromise. They never produce really strong white marks, but they can be great for adding small lighter marks with the white, for example in an animal's eye, or for delicate white patterns on leaves or on flowers. So let's try this very quickly with this sort of dark area here. And I really hope that the gel pen will go, oh well, it works. Sometimes it won't flow that well when you apply it over certain kinds of watercolor paint or over colored pencils. So this time it works, and so you can do these really nice small textures. So sometimes the application doesn't work so well. These kind of white gel pens from Uniball Signo, they work most of the time, but there are always a compromise. So an alternative for this kind of gel pen could be a soft white colored pencil that you can put on top of things, or you could use white gouache, or something like this, which is Bleed-Proof White by P.H. Martins, which is a really sort of an intensified version of white gouache, and it really covers up a lot of stuff. And you can even use this with the dip nib if the consistency is right. So I'm not sure if this will work, because usually you just have to add a little bit of water. But I hope, well, it works all right, but it's not perfect. So you have to figure out the consistency, but then you can apply this with a dip nib also if you don't want to ruin your brushes. So the last thing that I want to show you is this thing, and this is a, I'm not sure what do you call these, a pencil extender, because that's basically what it is. So if your pencils are nearing the state of a stump, then you can put this into this, and then you will have a nice long pencil again. So I really like this for using up my colored pencil stumps, and it keeps me from buying colored pencils and new pencils all the time. So these are essentially the drawing tools that I use. I know they're not very fancy. They are adapted to what I need on a daily basis, and from all of these I definitely like my fountain pens the best. And in terms of line quality and yeah, just overall usability, I use them every day. And the other tool that I use every day are definitely my mechanical pencils. So these are my two favorites from all of these, I would say. And oh, also I have to say the colored pencils. And I often use these in combination with watercolor work, but also on their own. And I really like the softness when you draw with these. Okay, these are my drawing tools. I would love to hear what's in your drawing toolbox, and what drawing tool do you use the most? What's your favorite thing to draw with? Yeah, just let me know in the comments. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, feel free to like, share and subscribe if you like this video, and I'll see you very soon. Bye!